Hey everybody, welcome to Let the Adventure Begin. I'm Josh Wood from expatexchange.com, and I'd like to thank you for being here. Portugal continues to be one of the most talked about destinations in the world for expats right now. But if you're thinking about making a move there, the real question is, what does it take to actually make it happen? First of all, let's back up and ask, why is Portugal so popular to begin with? And if you decide you want to move there, what are your options? What visa pathways are available to you? Basically, how do you turn the idea of living in Portugal into a reality? Fortunately, our guest today is going to be able to help us answer all of these questions and much, much more. We're going to be joined by Diogo Capela, a founding partner at the Laca law firm in Lisbon. For more than a decade, he has provided legal guidance to help businesses, families, and individuals navigate the process of relocating to, investing in, and doing business in Portugal. Diogo's a recognized leader in immigration and foreign investment law, a certified member of the Investment Migration Council, and has been named one of the top 25 immigration lawyers in the world by U Global Immigration Magazine 5 years in a row. He's also a regular speaker at international events on these topics, so he brings both deep expertise and a global perspective to the conversation. So without further ado, let's meet Diogo Capela. Hi, Diogo. Welcome to Let the Adventure Begin.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So why don't we just start off with you talking a little bit about your law firm and yourself, and kind of introduce yourself to our audience.
My name is Diogo Capela. I'm one of the founding partners of Lamares, Capela and Associados, also known as Laca Law Firm. It's a Portuguese law firm based in Lisbon with extensive experience in immigration, nationality law, real estate, and investment-related legal services. Our firm works closely with international clients who are interested in relocating to Portugal, investing in the country, or obtaining residency and citizenship. Actually, over the years, we have helped thousands of individuals and families navigate the Portuguese immigration system, whether they are retirees, entrepreneurs, investors, remote workers. And so actually Portugal has become a very international destination, and a large part of our work is actually helping people to understand the legal framework and guiding them through the process in a practical and strategic way.
That sounds great. So basically anything an expat would need, you guys provide.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's just start off talking about Portugal a little bit. And Portugal's become so popular over the course of the last, 10 to 15 years, but it's really been ramping up in the last few years. For
Mhm.
those that are just considering becoming an expat, can you explain to them a little bit about why Portugal is so popular?
Indeed, yes, I can. Actually, I think that several factors have contributed to Portugal's growing popularity. First of all, Portugal offers some exceptional quality of life. Okay, so a mild climate, beautiful coastline, safety is actually one of the safest countries in the world, and a relaxed lifestyle that many people find very attractive. As well as the government introduced a number of programs that over the years that made Portugal particularly appealing to international residents. These include tax incentives like the non-habitual resident status and immigration pathways such as the Portuguese Golden Visa program, which has brought global attention to the country. I would also say that Portugal, I said it before, but Portugal is actually one of the safest countries in the world, as I mentioned, and it
Yep.
offers also a strong infrastructure, healthcare, and education systems, while still maintaining an affordable cost of living compared to other Western European countries. At last, I would say that the rise of remote work has allowed many people to choose where they live, and Portugal has become a natural choice for many professionals seeking a better lifestyle, I would say.
Why don't you talk a little bit about, what's it like for if an expat is considering moving to Lisbon, what's that experience like for them?
Since I was born and lived all my life in Lisbon, I'm actually not the best person to answer this question. But according to what I can see from my clients and even friends who are expats living in Lisbon is actually a very unique experience. Lisbon is a historic European capital, but it also has a very dynamic and international atmosphere. Over the past decades, it has developed into a major hub for startups and technology companies as well. And expats often appreciate the balance Lisbon offers. When you have, in one hand, you have like a vibrant culture scene, excellent restaurants, beaches within 20 minutes, and of course, easy access to the rest of Europe. At the same time, Lisbon still maintains a strong Portuguese identity, which gives the city a lot of character. For many expats, it feels welcoming and accessible while still feeling authentically local. So that's part of Lisbon's appeal, is to understand that modernity and historical can work together and become a good mix of different experiences. And of course, as I mentioned, since Portuguese people are so welcoming, they feel like home here in Portugal.
And just as an aside, expats, I guess, especially around places like Lisbon, so many people speak English there, which
Correct.
if someone's a native English speaker, that makes them feel comfortable. One of the things I always hear expats say is they wish they had started learning Portuguese earlier,
Right.
but it does make it kind of nice that so many people in Portugal know how to speak English, especially in and around cities like Lisbon.
Yes, that's right. So it's very easy for some expat to adapt quickly since Portuguese citizens normal or in the major cities mainly, but also through the entire country are able to speak in English fluently.
Yeah, it's amazing actually. It's hard for a lot of Americans and British people, I think, to get their heads around the idea that so many people in a country are bilingual.
Right, right.
Yep. But it's such an advantage too for Portugal.
It is, it is.
Recently, the immigration pathways and some of the regulations around visas and immigration in general, there were some laws passed and they kind of got caught up in the court system. Can you give us just an idea of where those kinds of things stand in terms of how that's affecting expats?
I would say like we are through a period of transition, and probably that's what you're referring to. One major change, recent change, was the restructuring of the immigration authorities in Portugal. So we changed from an idea of having just one immigration police that was dealing with the administrative processes like having a residence permit and doing the renewals of these residence permits, and also at the same time dealing with human trafficking issues, doing or dealing with the border services and immigration at the borders through a different kind of model. And so the immigration police was dissolved, and now these responsibilities its responsibilities were transferred to an immigration agency that deals with the administration or administrative processes, better say, regarding like issuing residence cards, like I was saying, and dealing with the renewals of those residence cards. At the same time, the other powers were dispersed over different entities: civil registry services, other polices, administrative courts, and so on. And so this transition actually created some administrative delays and uncertainty in processing of applications. In addition, there have been legislative adjustments to certain visa programs, which are still being interpreted and in some cases challenged in court. For expats, the key takeaway is that Portugal remains open to immigration. It's very important that they understand that but at the same time, they need to also be aware that the process requires careful planning and patience, especially given the current processing timelines. Okay, so it's possible that for someone new that don't know exactly what is happening right now in Portugal, to feel a little bit uncomfortable on some delays regarding having their residence cards or having their appointments for taking their biometric data so they can have access to a residence card or a residence permit.
Okay, wow, that's so well explained. Those, we get all kinds of questions about those kinds of things, and you just explained it so well. That's so great. You mentioned a couple of the visas earlier, but just can you just go through a couple of the more popular visas, who they're suited to, and why they're so popular?
Okay, so I think that we need to separate different visas because we have three or four main types of visas. So short-term visas, which are normally related with some touristic visas, like people that want to come to Portugal and visit, namely the Schengen visa, which is the most common one. You have also another category of visas, which is the temporary stay visas, which can be granted for a period of up to 12 months. And we have at the end we have the most common ones that we are normally dealing with in our law firm, which are the residence visas. And for the residence visas, of course, we are here looking for people that are actually planning to relocate to Portugal and living here for the long term. We are talking about, or the main ones would be the D7 visa, which is intended for passive income holders, like pensions or pensionists or people that have like rents coming from real estate properties or investments that they have, or even retirees can access
Yeah.
this D7 visa. We have also another visa, which is the D2 visa, intended for entrepreneurs, people that are planning to establish their businesses in Portugal. Okay, if they want to create their own businesses, they will have access to a residence visa in Portugal. Highly qualified professionals, when they are looking for some job opportunities in Portugal, they are being hired by a Portuguese-based company, they can have access to a residence permit as well, due to the fact that they have some certain skills. And the last one in this category would be the D8 visa, which is the remote worker visa
Mm.
for people that are still working for a company overseas, but they are looking for Portugal as their primary residency. So they are living in Portugal at the same time they are working for a company that is operating overseas. At the end of all, we have also the Golden Visa program, which is kind of different due to the fact that you can access the residence permit as the residence visa as that I was referring to before. But the Golden Visa, for you to have access to that, you need to perform an investment, an eligible one. Like we have a list of qualifying investments that people might take in order to get the Golden Visa. And by performing this investment, they can have access to a residence permit and they don't really need to relocate to Portugal. They can access the residence card, have access to the residence card, but they don't need to commit themselves with relocation. Basically, they can keep their residence card throughout a period of 5 years, which is the validity of the card or the time frame to have the card, while they are only required to stay in Portugal for a minimum period of 7 days per year. Every year they just need to keep coming to Portugal for about 7 days per year and give access to the residence permit. And later on, by the end of the 5th year, they can also apply for the Portuguese citizenship, which is very good, taking in consideration that Portuguese passport is considered to be one of the strongest passports in the world right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. So the Golden Visa, there were some changes in the last few years to it, right? In terms of
Correct.
what types of investments are allowed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. More or less by the end of 2023, I guess, the government has decided to extinguish the possibility for people to have access to the golden visa through a real estate investment. So it's no longer possible to have access to the golden visa through a direct or indirect investment in real estate. Okay, so that's a limitation on the previous program on when it was designed. Actually, so you can have an idea, the program was created back in 2012. So it right now has some different configuration from what it was in the past. And one of the differences is the fact that it's no longer possible to obtain it through a real estate investment. However, you can still have access to the Portuguese Golden Visa through an investment in an investment fund, through some cultural heritage and programs or projects that are previously accepted by the government, and some sort of a donation, or even to when you are establishing a company and hiring people in Portugal, or when you are investing in a company that already exists. So those three main options are still available, and I would say that this program is still attractive for investors that are really looking for some plan B for their lives, but they are not quite prepared to get out of their countries or live in Portugal, but they want to have that certainty in mind that if needed, they can always come to Portugal and stay here for the long run. As you know, as soon as you receive a residence card, you have all access to everything related to, or everything that the Portuguese national has, besides being elected for some presidential elections or things like that. But besides having some electoral powers, they will have access to the education system, healthcare system, social security. They will have access to courts. They can establish their businesses, as I was saying, or even to start working for a company. They have access to all.
That's great. That's great. And just going back for a second to talk about the remote worker visa, there were a lot of people that were waiting for that to finally come to fruition, and
Mhm.
that's popular as well.
Correct. Yes, it is. Remote worker visa has become very attractive for people that were trying to link the benefits of having a residence permit in Portugal and the benefits of still receiving the salaries coming from countries that pay higher salaries than Portugal. Okay, so the cost of living in Portugal is moderate and low when comparing with other Western Europe cities. But when you're living here, you have access to several benefits that I mentioned before, and of course the quality of life as well. But at the same time, you're still receiving a salary coming from a country that pays very well, a good salary. So it's the best of both worlds. And in Portugal, since we have several agreements regarding double taxation, in order to avoid double taxation established with several countries, it's very likely that while they're living here and having their tax residency here in Portugal, they will not be double taxed over the income that they are receiving overseas. So for some people, this is actually a very good thing to have. Besides, for a certain type of people and for a certain type of profiles, sometimes they can have access to some tax benefit that guarantee a huge tax reduction, and sometimes they get very happy when they understand that they will be paying less taxes than they are paying at their own countries.
Yep, excellent. When expats, when they first start researching Portugal, what are some of the misconceptions that you see expats having, and what do you wish people understood earlier on in the process?
So I think that the first misconception is that several clients sometimes think that things will move pretty much as the same at the same pace as they are used in their own countries.
Right.
And Portugal is welcoming, but like many other European countries, has some bureaucracies, and the administrative process can be slow. Okay, immigration procedures require documentation, patience, and careful compliance with some legal requirements. Okay, so I would say this is the major misconception. Another one, when people are not quite informed at the beginning, or when they don't really look for this information in the correct sources of information, they sometimes tend to think that Portugal is uniformly inexpensive, which is not correct. Some areas remain affordable. Cities like Lisbon and Porto have some increases in housing costs in recent years. So it's very important to understand before someone moves, comes to Portugal, and before deciding where exactly are they going to live, because sometimes they are surprised when they feel that they were not aware of some differences on the cost of living depending on the cities they are living at. Of course, it's the same in Portugal as you experience in any other country. Main cities tend to be expensive and or more expensive than others.
Yep. Are there any other mistakes you see them make consistently when they're first beginning to apply for various visas?
Actually, when they are reaching out to us in our law firm, we can advise them right from the very beginning when they are still in their own countries, and they are looking to relocate to Portugal, and they trust on us to understand the best pathway, the best visa for them. And so everything tends to be more predictable, you know. But from time to time, we get some clients that were already in the course of action. They were taking care about their own visas. And what is very common is that they don't choose the right visa for them or for their situation. They underestimate some processing times. So people think that, okay, I'll go to Portugal within the next 2 or 3 months, but they forget that there are some processing times that are, of course, sometimes according to the law, and they are established in the law, but they are not aware of. And not maintaining proper documentation is also another mistake that I see, and failing to understand some residency requirements when they are not advised well from the very beginning. Okay, so I think that what is important is that to understand it is that small decisions early in the process can sometimes create complications later when applying for residency renewals or even citizenship. So it's very important that everything is planned and well prepared, so these mistakes don't happen, and there's not a cost of a financial cost nor any time that is wasted for those that are looking to obtain some residency permits in Portugal.
Yeah. So basically, when people don't use a service such as yours, they can end up it can end up taking a lot longer, and it can end up costing them more money because they don't understand the process and understand the best ways to go about embarking upon becoming an expat in Portugal.
Correct. And even sometimes when they are renewing their residence cards. Actually, we had very recently a client that was coming to us and reach out to us from Portugal. Okay. She's not Portuguese, of course, but she actually asked for our help due to the fact that the immigration agency had denied her application for a renewal, not only for her, but for two daughters that she has in Portugal. And she is asking our help right now. And some documents were used in the process for the renewal that actually makes it harder for us to make it happen or to help her on the renewal of her residence card. So some documents that are used might also be helpful or not helpful, and it's important for us or for people that are hiring legal services and namely our services to understand that one good thing about having a lawyer with them is that we understand the law, we understand the requirements, and we will guide the entire file and the document collection as well. So that is a very good thing that we can provide.
Right. So it sounds like with that one client in particular, that was completely avoidable. And if she had come to you from at the beginning, she wouldn't be in the situation that she's in now.
Sure, I gave you one example, but I can give you a lot over all these years that I'm working with immigration. Actually, I have more than 10 years working with this matter. So as you can imagine, I see so many problems over the years that I was just giving you an example that is in the top of mind, but there are several cases when people reach out and they were or they had some misconceptions coming even from other professionals, not lawyers for the majority of time, but other professionals that operate in the immigration landscape that were giving them some bad advice, and so sometimes they reach out to us in a good time. Sometimes they are just past their opportunities and we need to start from the beginning, which is very frustrating to see.
Right. And yeah, that's one of the things that we'll hear from experienced expats that have been abroad for a long time. And maybe they started off trying to do everything on their own, and they've learned along the way that in the long run they save more money and have fewer headaches when they use a service like yours.
Sure. So we ensure that applications are submitted correctly and legal strategies are aligned with long-term goals such as citizenship, for example, and that every unexpected issue that might occur in the process, because of course we cannot predict the future. Sometimes things are not quite as we planned, and what we can do is to address all these issues quickly and acting according to the rules that are established in the law. So we make everything legal compliant in a way to avoid any bad decisions from the immigration agency or even some rejections on the applications.
So you said before that, you've been doing this for 10 years now. So over the
Sure.
course of the 10 years, how has the profile of the average expat changed, in terms of the kinds of people who are coming now versus like 10 years ago?
That's actually a very interesting question. Actually, throughout the years, what I experienced was that when I start working with this was back to 2012, actually, and by that time, the people that were coming to Portugal were not so aware of the entire legal landscape. They were not aware of all the visas that they can access. Sometimes I felt even difficult to explain where Portugal was because by back at that time it was not so attractive and nor so well known as it is right now. People were sometimes confused about Portugal being part of Spain. So that was something that I had to deal with from the beginning when I started to work in this area. But right now, what I see is that people that come to us, they already have read lots of things online. Some of them are very well, they understand very pretty well the entire process. They just want to make sure that some information that they received online is correct. And let me tell you that there's a lot of misinformation online, okay, a
Right.
lot of them, and it's a problem that I see throughout all these years. As far as I notice, they tend to be more professional when they're looking for some immigration solutions. They are looking for someone to guide them, but they already know exactly what to expect. They are not in a position, as I saw several times before, when they just knew that they wanted to come to Portugal and live in Portugal, but they don't have any clue about the visas that exists in Portugal and the different pathways, immigration pathways that they can choose. Nowadays, they already know and they mention it right from the beginning. Like, I want a D7 visa. They are actually right, and they understand why it was designed, and it is actually the best fit for them. And before it was not like that. And also we see a different some changes on the type of clients that we have, and from the different locations that sometimes or right now actually Americans are the biggest public that we have, or the biggest clients that we have, are coming from the US and UK, and back in 2015, 18, no Americans were coming to Portugal. So this is some differences that I can see.
Okay, got you. You mentioned that, you're talking about people having a general idea of, a visa or whatever, but can you just give us at a very high level what the process is like when someone, first starts to apply for a visa? What is the process that you have to go through generally?
Yes, in the general terms, I will not be very specific on this, but first is to choose the appropriate visa, so which is the visa that fits into my situation. So the first questions would be to understand sources of income that the person has, and if that person has some profession, and what is planning to do in Portugal, if this person is planning to retire, or to establish a company, or to be hired by a Portuguese-based company. All these decisions, or even to study, all these decisions will make a difference on the visa to choose. So the first step would be that. The second would be to apply for the visa through the Portuguese consulate of the country of residence or country of nationality of the applicant.
Mhm.
Nowadays, as we speak, we can have what we call a family application. Okay,
Mhm.
so there is a main applicant for the application, the person that actually will bring the family together, and we need to choose the visa for the main applicant, but the other family members that are coming with the main applicant will follow and will have access to the family reunification process for them. Okay, so
Okay.
all them can be making the entire process, the immigration process, from the beginning until the end, all together. Okay, so the second stage would be to go through the visa application process at the Portuguese consulate. The third step would be to enter Portugal. So as soon as the visa is issued, which can be within 30 or up to 60 days, depends on the type of visa they are applying for. As soon as they receive the visa and the visa is stamped on their passport, they will be able to come to Portugal, and here in Portugal they will actually change the visa to a residence permit. And in order to do that, in Portugal they will have to have an appointment with the immigration agency. That appointment is for them to take the biometric data, photograph, fingerprints, and signature, and pay the fees, the administrative fees for issuing the residence card. And they will receive the residence card sometime after this appointment in their address in Portugal. So I would say that this is the fourth step in the process, is to receive the card. And depends, of course, on the visa, on the residence card that they will get. They will need to renew the residency permit periodically. So from time to time, they need to go to the immigration agency, do the biometrics, and do the renewal. And after 5 years, apply. And I would say that this is the ultimate steps, would be to apply after 5 years to the permanent residence card or to the Portuguese citizenship, or both. Actually, they can have access to both Portuguese citizenship and permanent residency, and that's it.
And is there anything that someone might do, and you don't have to list them all, but are there things that happen early on when someone begins the immigration process that makes it difficult for them later on to get their permanent residency or their citizenship?
Yes, sometimes. Well, back when they are still in their own countries, when they're applying for the visa, this is one of the major steps on the process. Actually, when they're applying for the visa, if they don't file the correct documents, if they miss something, or they don't explain it very clearly, the consulates actually will look into the requirements mentioned in the law and
Mm-hmm.
decide whether if the person can access the visa or have access to the visa or not. But besides that, and this is quite strange when we are talking about a country that is under the rule of law as Portugal, but it is like that. Portuguese consulates have discretionary powers when they're dealing with the visa applications, which allows them to basically deny the applications just because, with no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And this, of course, is a rule also written in the law, so they are doing what the law actually allows them to do. But it's quite strange why they are doing this. We are normally used to, when you are filing everything correctly, when you are doing every step required to have access to something and to have the right to have your visa. But in Portugal, there's not such a thing as having the right to have a visa. It's something that is important for people that are applying for the visa to understand, is that they can always be rejected under the law. And so the consulates have that power. Of course, when they are filing everything according to the normal checklist of documents, following every requirement, showing everything correctly, they shouldn't be afraid of that. But from my past experience, what have been probably the most common thing for, or argument for consulates to impose some problems or even reject applications, is sometimes the lack of understanding on why people are actually relocating to Portugal when they have some connections in other countries in the EU zone, and they feel like, okay, this person is applying for Portugal because probably it's easier, but they actually want to run away and go to another country in Europe. And in that case, for example, we had some one case in particular, we were able to revert that decision from the consulate, but we had a case from someone that had applied for a visa in Portugal, but since his daughter was living in another country, I don't recall which was the country, but the consulate has denied. And because they thought that this person was coming to Portugal, but escaping to that country since his family was there. We were able to argue and to revert the consulate decision, but this is the kind of thing that we sometimes need to manage and to address when we are talking about applications over the consulate.
Yep, that's great. That's good information. You mentioned before that you are a native to Lisbon. What
Yes.
personally, what's your favorite thing about life in Portugal?
One of the things that I appreciate most about Portugal is the balance between quality of life and simplicity, actually. So people here value time with family and friends. I'm no exception. I love food. I'm actually a foodie, so good food, and Portugal has that to offer, and outdoor life as well. When it's raining, people actually get sometimes very confused because we are not so used about rain or bad weather. We are used to sunny weather, to sunny days. The pace here is more relaxed compared with other European capitals. Yet the country still offers excellent infrastructure and global connectivity, which is also good. So Portugal, if you are looking for the map and you try to point the middle, probably you will be pointing to Portugal. It's almost in the middle of everything. So it has a very good connectivity and it's very well positioned geographically. When you are trying to travel to the Americas, to Africa, to South America, to the rest of Europe. So we are very well connected. And besides, it's a safe country to live. It's very good. And in the current days, as we are talking, it's even more
Yep.
appreciated. So it's a good country for you to be relaxed and not being to be worried so much about some war that is coming or some problems that safety problems that might arise.
And that when you think about expats, and you've been exposed to a lot of expats just through your business, what's it like for an expat to settle in to Portugal and maybe even Lisbon specifically?
You mentioned something, Joshua, before that I think that is a very good icebreaker, is to learn even a little of Portuguese. Very small words, but that sometimes people appreciate, like thank you in Portuguese, or good morning in Portuguese, is something that Portuguese people like to hear and appreciate the effort of someone actually speaking the Portuguese language. Not such a big thing. Not It's not relevant to have a fluent Portuguese, but when some people understand that this person is doing the effort to say hello, say thank you in Portuguese, they tend to be even kinder, even more welcoming to those. Respecting local customs actually is, of course, something that everyone needs to have in mind, not just living in Portugal, but it's general knowledge here. And engaging with the community goes a long way sometimes, because people are afraid to sometimes fit in, or they have some difficulties on fitting in when they're looking for their local communities. But as I can see right now, we have or we are under the age of the apps, online apps. You can just find out some events coming in your city, or even to connect with other people through some apps on your cell phone, and that is great. So try to find out people like you, but also Portuguese people that are living in the same city as yourself, and they want to know other people and more people. And there's lots of events throughout the week that you can go and meet people. So most expats find that once they settle in, they quickly build a routine and feel very comfortable here, as I understand, because generally speaking, we are very welcoming to foreigners.
I think that's true. We hear that all the time about how welcoming people are in Portugal, and it just makes it so much easier. But that's all such great advice there. Now, what's something that expats that catches expats off guard that they don't expect, but they really end up loving about Portugal? I mean, maybe it is how welcoming the people are, but what else do expats just end up loving, and they kind of build it into their life in Portugal?
Actually, it's the once again the balance between the quality of life and the simplicity. It's the Portuguese lifestyle. And of course, having having Portuguese people on their circle, it's good for them to introduce them to other people, but also to have access to some local experiences, for example, and to be more aware of how the Portuguese people live. But I say that nowadays information is widespread and people can understand by themselves very quickly where will they fit in, because of course different people, different tribes, different ways to think. Like for example, to play golf, Portuguese has amazing golf courses and they can start playing golf in Portugal, and through that they can meet people. Besides having like an hobby, not only sports but a different hobby, they can relate with others through that hobby as well.
That's great. That's great. Now you mentioned food before, and we like to
Yeah.
talk about food on this podcast. So I think food is such a big part of the Portuguese culture. What are the dishes and traditions or everyday eating customs that help define it?
Yes, indeed. Food is it's a very important thing for for a Portuguese. As soon as you arrive here, you will understand that restaurants are very vibrant. They are always full of people. People are eating and at the same time discussing the best place where they've eaten before, and the place that they are going to eat next meal. So this is a subject that is very relevant to Portuguese, and this is something that will make people together. Is when they share some experience over sometimes a good restaurant that they have where they've been, and they want to share it right away. Oh, you should try this and this and that. And so people like to meet in a restaurant, and while they're eating they're talking about food, which is kind of difficult to understand for someone that have not experienced the Portuguese way of thinking, but it's like that. And so Portugal offers one of the best seafood and shellfish in the world, I would say. Definitely something to experience is that. But it's very curious to understand that one of the major dishes in Portugal is bacalhau, codfish in English. And we have a say in Portugal that we normally like to say is that we can do different recipes for codfish for every single day over the year. So 365 recipes for codfish we have. But actually, codfish is not coming from Portugal. We don't produce codfish because there's no codfish in our sea. So it's something very interesting that one of the major things that we eat in Portugal, we are one of the biggest consumers of codfish in the world, but we are actually importing them from Ireland and Norway or Finland. And in Portugal, besides having the experience to or experience these local foods, you can also try to experience some international restaurants with international foods. Like I said, we have very good restaurants in Portugal, a very good list of Michelin star restaurants as well if you want to go fine dining. But every corner you have a very good restaurant that is not so expensive as a fine dining restaurant, and you will eat very well, and you will enjoy life at that point, because Portuguese food and Portuguese wine are very good, very good.
You're making me want to run and go eat right now. So
Let's do it.
yeah. So now what about you? If you had to pick your favorite Portuguese meal, what is your personal favorite?
Difficult. Actually, I don't have one. It's very hard. I'm like I said before, I'm a foodie, so I like to experience everything and very different. So it's very hard for me to choose one. So yes, it's kind of impossible to choose since we have so many good things to have. A very traditional food that I can mention, or I should mention here for people that are listening and never heard about Portuguese cuisine before is cozido à portuguesa. It's a Portuguese cozido, which is a very traditional dish. It's very, very good, and Portuguese people like to have it in a regular basis because it part of our tradition is to eat cozido. So I would say that it's not my probably it's not my favorite because I don't have a favorite one, but is on the top of the list.
Okay, and what is cozido? What is in it?
So it's a mix of meat, okay, coming from the it's meat and beef, pork. You have also some cabbages, everything steamed, okay. You have also some chorizo, some other sausages and rice, and there are different ways to do cozido according to the place where you are and
Okay.
the part of the country. Some places offer cozido in one way and others go for a different one, but the major or the common ground here is to have cabbages and to have rice and to have the sausages and the meat and from the pork and beef. Okay, those are the common grounds, and later on there are some different sausages coming on or coming in, and different mixes. Even sometimes we have cozido with parts of the chicken, like the chicken leg or the chicken wing, but there are other parts in Portugal that don't use chicken at all. So, but it's everything steamed and it's very tasteful. It's very
Great.
tasteful.
That sounds great. When expats come to Portugal, they end up wanting to travel around and see different parts of the country. What are some of the favorite places? Like if you end up living in Lisbon, what are some of the first places that you think expats will end up traveling to in Portugal, away from Lisbon?
Away from Lisbon. So it depends on what they're actually looking for and the specific time when they're visiting Portugal. Definitely on summertime, they should explore the coastal line of the south and western coastal line of Portugal. They should do the Algarve area right at the bottom of Portugal, right
Right.
at the south of Portugal. Amazing beaches there to explore. For those that are looking for some time at the beach, Algarve area is an amazing place to be. Also, if they are looking for or they if they like wines, for example, if they enjoy having some glass of wine and they want to explore some wine regions, Douro Valley in the north of the country is a must go. It's an amazing place. When you see it in pictures, sometimes you will fall in love right away because it's amazing. It's like a place where you can actually do some visiting on the wineries while you're going over the river through the mountains, and it's an amazing place and you should explore that definitely. Also Porto, not only because of Porto wine, one of the most well-known wines in from Portugal. Porto area is also very vibrant and offers lots of good things to explore right in the north of Portugal. And in the middle you have like Coimbra, which is very beautiful as well, and you eat amazing food, historical city or historical cities nearby. It's a different kind of mindset. And you, of course, have the highlands of Portugal. If you go to the archipelagos, Azores and Madeira Island, you might know Madeira because it's the place of birth of Cristiano Ronaldo. So he actually was born in Madeira Island, which is an amazing place also for you to visit. Not only because of the Madeira wine, which is also very well known. Very good beaches, very nice weather, amazing food. So yes, it's very good. And Azores the same, very good place to stay, and it's a kind of small type of islands, and you can travel and explore everything from one place to the other very quickly, which makes it very fun. And I would definitely recommend you to go there. Not in the first time you come to Portugal, I would say,
Okay.
but for a second or third time, you should go there as well. Or if you're coming with time, definitely.
That's excellent. It's interesting, Portugal's become so popular that there are even some international celebrities that are starting to gravitate towards there. I know that I think George Clooney has
Mhm.
got a
Mhm.
place there. Nicole
Yes,
Kidman
that's
is
correct.
looking there, and I think Madonna bought a place in Sintra. What do you think it is? Is there anything that appeals to them? Like, do you think there's a level of privacy they get, or is it just like you're saying, the balance of the lifestyle, or is it all that? And how are people in Portugal responding to that?
Yes, actually, you touched a point that it's very interesting to understand that probably Madonna, I guess, was the first huge celebrity coming and living in Portugal for a long period. That was like a very big surprise for everybody. Like, okay, Madonna is living in Portugal, but why? Why exactly is she doing to her life? Because whenever you listen to Madonna, you think that she's a worldwide pop star that everybody knows. It was not so common to see that. Nowadays, after she relocated to Portugal. I guess she already returned back to the US. I guess it's where she lives. I think so. It was a shift here, a turning point, because other celebrities started to look to Portugal for them to live, but also for them to invest. So Portugal is a good place to invest in real estate. And there are some locations where these celebrities are investing in that are particular areas of interest for them really when they are looking for some good real estate investments long term. Okay, so we have like the Clooney and even the royal families coming to investing in Portugal, and there are some particular areas in Portugal that are now very expensive due to that. What do we think about that in for the Portuguese? When the Portuguese are looking for that, they tend to look in two different ways. Okay, there are people like, okay, this is good, more jobs, people having more money, attracting more tourism. That's good. Let's take this as a good thing. But there are others that are not so much happy when they face the housing prices rise in some locations.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's not even, we are not even talking about the main cities, but places that are were not hotspots, let's say, but were more close to the beach, but in the countryside, you know, so in the
Hmm.
coastal areas, but low density areas at the same time. And now the prices have skyrocketed, and people are like, okay, but where do I live right now? I should make a move and go another place because I don't have any place to live here since I don't have money to pay for a house for myself. So that is the other side. Of course, I guess this is the normal market working. Of course, when you have the demand, the amount of properties that are offered by the market at that point, the prices tends to go up, and that's the thing here. But for the majority of people, I guess they are not so much preoccupied with that, not so worried about this, and they are happy to see that people are looking to Portugal to invest. And since Portugal needs to have direct foreign investment for to operate and to be a good place to live. So that's something that we normally have in mind, and we don't worry so much about these kind of big projects that are going on.
One more question before I let you go. So, you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but what excites you the most about Portugal's future and as a place to live and build a life? When you think about 5, 10, 15 years down the road, what gets you the most excited for Portugal?
I think that it would be great to see Portugal keep working on being international, an international country. For such a long period of time, I think that we should be more international or more connected to other countries. And this connectivity, it's important to have in mind. And we are discussing having another airport for such a long period of time, and it's a must. Portugal needs another airport. What excites me most as well is the fact that Portugal is still a good and safe place to live. Not only when you're talking about the structural strengths that Portugal has, like having a good weather and good food, as I said, everything, but to be safe at this point in time is a very important thing and makes me excited to understand that I'm already living in a country that do not present any risks right now as we speak. So the future, I guess, would be the same, and I hope so. I believe Portugal will continue to grow as one of the Europe's most appealing destinations for international residents. So it makes me happy and excited to understand that we are in an era of this connectivity and having the possibility to share some experiences with people that are actually relocating and living in Portugal, and also helping us to grow, investing as well. And that's it. That's what I think the future will bring to us.
That's so great. And again, we're with Diogo Capela from the Laka Law Firm in Lisbon. And Diego, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
You're welcome.
We loved having you, and you provided so much great information for our listeners. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Joshua. Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Take care. And that's it for this episode of Let the Adventure Begin. We've got more episodes coming your way throughout the year. I'm Josh Wood. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to follow the show wherever you are. And as always, visit us at expatexchange.com.